Welcome to presentation number 20 in our series Rereading Revelation. We have reached the section about the seven bowls, Revelation 15:1 to 16:21. And this is what our outline will look like, the seven bowls. Here are the chapters, two chapters. And we have here first in chapter 15, the open heaven, a scene of the redeemed on Mount Zion singing the song of Moses. That is the song that is also sung by the Lamb. And then we have readying the seven bowls. That's in the open heavens scene. And then we have the seven bowls here in chapter 16 and all of the seven bowls. And then as a kind of appendix, or obviously more than an appendix, but I just bring it to your attention, that the angels that have the seven bowls, they stay in the story till the very end of the book. There is a bowl angel explaining this, explaining that, Babylon, the New Jerusalem. So there is a kind of guided tour with a bowl angel all the way to chapter 22, verse 5. But we are concentrating on this part now, the two chapters, 15 and 16. Here we have the redeemed singing the song of Moses and the Lamb. And here we have the bowl angels getting ready with the seven bowls. So we are ready to begin, but we have to do some very important preliminaries. We are going to see that there is troubled waters here, and we need a bridge over the troubled waters, a bridge leading from the seven trumpets to the seven bowls. That's what my bridge is intended to show. So what do we take away from the seven trumpets that are quite critical for the way we read the seven bowls? Well, this is by way of review. What was depicted in the seven trumpets? Was it good or bad? It was bad. It was evil. It was an evil reality. And who did it? By whom? Was it God or was it Satan doing it? And it was Satan. It was the evil side. And then, was it revelation or was it retribution? It was revelation. It was revelation of demonic activity, of the evil that is happening in the world. That is what we see on the trumpet side, and we need to keep that in mind, because as we cross over the bridge, we will see similar depictions here, and we will have reason to revisit these questions and see what happened on the bowl side. So this is the Golden Gate Bridge of interpretation of the transition from the seven trumpets to the seven bowls. This is giving a safe passage from the trumpets to the bowls. How about that? And here again, I just want to make sure that we do not underestimate the importance of coming prepared here. We are standing here on the side of the trumpets. We are crossing over to the seven bowls, but we have to be sure we know what we have, what we take with us. So, chapter 12 in the center again. Influence of chapter 12 upstream here to the beginning of the book. Influence of chapter 12 here downstream in the book. And here I have put a bridge. Again, same bridge from chapters 8 and 9, seven trumpets, to chapters 15 and 16, 7 bowls. These are critical parameters, and I cannot stress it too much. So I made one more illustration here. Bridge to clarity. From 7 trumpets to 7 bowls. How are we going to do it? Well, we are going to do it by means of the tools, the methodological commitments that we have tried to keep in mind every step of the way in this book. We begin here at point A, 7 trumpets. How did we interpret them? We interpret them in part by paying attention to how John uses the Old Testament. The star that had fallen from heaven, the theme of cosmic conflict, and to make the Old Testament help us explain scenes in the 7 trumpets. And then, now this is one of our commitments. This is another one. God is not the only one who is at work in this world. And we saw a demonic reality projected here in the trumpets. Okay, we're getting over here. Point B, 7 bowls. What do we have here on this side? Well, we have the rereader. That we have rereader competency. We are moving from here to here, but we need to have a sense of the whole. And then what we get then, we see here God is not the only one at work in the world, and we see here a process coming to completion. Something quite terrifying happens here in the trumpet. Something worse happens here in the bowls. Who is doing it? This is what the main issue will be, and we are crossing the bridge on these commitments, these approaches. Rereader, use of the Old Testament. God is not the only one who is at work in the world, and this process is now coming to completion, coming to a head. There is also a sense of progression here, a kind of bad, worse, worst. When you look at the 7 seals, to the 7 trumpets, to the 7 bowls. Here we have the 4 horsemen of Dürer, 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Here we have the trumpet, 2nd trumpet here, a third of the earth was burned up. And here we have the bowls. And so let's look at just some key words here. They were given authority over a fourth of the earth here. And here a third of the earth was burned up. And here every living thing in the sea died. There is a progression, a kind of worsening here. Yes, we said that the third, the repetitive third in the trumpet sequence isn't only a mark or a signifier of quantity. It is a signifier of agency. But even if we make the agency the main thing, there is a sense of progression here. From a third of the sea became blood here, and here everything in the sea is blood and everything dies in the bowls. So there is progression, as we can see. We're ready to start reading in Revelation chapter 15. Then I saw another sign in heaven, great and amazing. 7 angels with 7 plagues, which are the last, for with them the wrath of God is brought to completion. And here we have an illustration in the Trinity Apocalypse, 7 angels with the 7 bowls, which are the last, and we read on. And I saw what appeared to be a sea of glass mixed with fire, and those who had won over the beast and its image and the number of its name, standing beside the sea of glass with the harps of God in their hands. So there is a happy scene here too. And here is the Trinity Apocalypse with the happy scene. The redeemed with the harps of God. This is beautiful. Beautiful image. And they sing the song that Moses sang, the servant of God, which is also the song sung by the Lamb. So this is an amazing constellation. You could say, in a sort of metaphorical sense, that Moses is the Old Testament. And you could say that the song sung by the Lamb is the New Testament. That would mean that the Old Testament and the New Testament are, as it were, on the same page, that there is continuity, that there is the same message in these two sections of the Bible. It could mean that. But it could also mean that this is the individual Moses, that person who actually sang a song and composed a song and performed it. And that Jesus, is, in a similar way, maybe in a somewhat more metaphorical way, also has a song sheet. And that those songs, the song that Moses sang and the one Jesus sings are the same. So let's see the scene here in the Cambrai Apocalypse. We see the harps here, and they are singers, and they are playing, and we are expected to hear music here, and they are singing the song of Moses. And here is the beginning of Old Testament background for the Song of Moses. At the end of the book of Deuteronomy, Moses is about to die. He is done. He will not enter the promised land. He would have liked to. He wanted badly to enter the promised land, and God tells him no. Why? And Moses says, why not? Why can't I? Well, it was because Moses, toward the end of the journey toward the promised land, God had instructed him to speak to the rock. And Moses got angry and struck the rock. And God told him afterwards, you failed to honor me, and you are not going to enter the land. And Moses thought that was really quite a harsh thing, quite hard to come to terms with that he would not enter. And he asked again, and this is what God tells him in the end. We are finished talking about that subject. Now here is one more thing for you to do. Write a song, teach it to the Israelites, put it into their mouths, and then we have this scene here of Moses at the end of his life, and here he is in the figure similar to the way Michelangelo pictures him. This is Moses. These are the Israelites. It is a farewell scene where Moses will teach the Israelites a song. The song that Moses sang is a real song. It's a real event, textually at least, the way the Old Testament depicts it. There was such a thing as the Song of Moses. Now, we are going to read the content of that song in the context of Revelation, and then look again a side glance to Moses. So here is the song in Revelation 15. Great and counterintuitive are your actions, Lord God the Almighty. Right-making and trustworthy are your ways, King of the nations. Lord, who will not hold you in high regard and speak well of your name? For you alone are faultless. All nations will come and worship before you. For your idea, your notion of right act has been revealed. That is my translation. I will explain a couple of terms in a moment. And here is music to go with it, as it were. So let's look at the Song of Moses here. So these are just excerpts. The Song of Moses in the book of Deuteronomy is longer than what I have what I will feature here. I'll just feature a couple of key terms. But this Song of Moses is his own personal song. When he says that God has shown his right act, he also acknowledges that it was right of God not to let Moses enter the promised land, because it was wrong of Moses to strike the rock and to make it appear that God is angry, that he failed to represent God and the way God deals with humans. So Moses' song is also an acknowledgement on a personal level of that God's ways are not exactly like our ways. And this is from Deuteronomy. The rock, his work is perfect, and all his ways are just. And the rock, it's the rock that he struck, the rock Moses hit. That is perfect, and all his ways are just. A faithful God without deceit, just and upright is he. And I have another translation here that I'd like to read as well. For I will sing the Lord's renown. Oh, proclaim the greatness of our God. The rock with a capital. How faultless are his deeds. How right all his ways. A faithful God without deceit. How just and upright is he. So what do we take away from this? We take away that into the Song of Moses, there is also Moses' own experience, and not just sort of a general bird's eye view of how God dealt with the Israelites. And just to make this point a little clearer. So we could have said, for your judgments have been revealed, but we are saying here, your notion of right act has been revealed, because maybe we expected God to do something other than what God has done. So what has been revealed is not something that conforms to our ideas about right act. It is God's idea of right act that has been revealed. That's why it should be translated this, in my view, counterintuitive are your ways. We had not expected things to be the way they are. That's what we're seeing. So just a couple of vocabulary items here in the Song of Moses. Here is the word thaumastos, amazing, astonishing, usual translation. Here, counterintuitive, contrary to expectations. And here at the bottom of the list is dikaiomata, judgments, and I translated the sense of right act, so as to disabuse us of the notion that we come into this with a sense of what the right act would be, only to discover that God's sense of the right act is something quite different. All right, let's read on. Then I heard a loud voice from the temple telling the 7 angels, "Go and pour out on the earth the 7 bowls of the wrath of God." So the first angel went and poured his bowl on the earth, and an evil and vicious sore came on those who had the mark of the beast and who worshipped its image. And we should now think that this is something that is quite intrinsic to the choice of committing to the beast and its image. And the notion of evil and vicious sore is already here, has already here a demonic quality. And here in the Cambrai Apocalypse, John is watching all of this through the window into the heavenly council, where we are watching this movie on the screen, and we see the first bowl poured out, and there will be sores that come on those who are hit by it. And then we read on, the second angel poured his bowl into the sea, and it became like the blood of a corpse, and every living thing in the sea died. And here we have the Trinity Apocalypse, the first angel, the first bowl is on this side. Here is the second bowl, and pouring it out on the sea and the springs of water, and everything here dies. And you see the fish here, all of them are belly up, as it were, so they are not alive anymore. And then we want to keep in mind that these scenes in the bowl sequence, they are similar to what happened in the trumpet sequence. So we're studying the first and second bowl, but what happened here in the trumpet sequence? First angel blew his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and they were hurled to the earth, just like first bowl. And second one, the second angel blew his trumpet, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. And a third of the sea became blood, a third of the living creatures in the sea died. And we have the same here, into the sea became blood, and they died. Everything died here. Similar things. So these parallels are really, really strong parallels. You cannot run away from them. The third angel poured his bowl into the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. And I heard the angel of the waters say, "You are in the right, you who are with us and always were, the irreproachable one, for the way you adjudicate these things, because they poured out the blood of saints and prophets. You have given them blood to drink." That is the consequence. There is a sort of repercussion coming to what has been done here. And I heard the altar respond, "Yes, O Lord God the Almighty, trustworthy and right-making are your decisions." So here in the Cambrai Apocalypse, the springs of water are damaged here, and those who drink it, the springs of water that become blood, they die here. And let's see, look what happens in the trumpet sequence, the parallel. The third angel blew his trumpet, and an enormous star fell from heaven, burning like a torch. Then it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. And many people died from the water because it was made poisonous. Same things. Damage to the springs of rivers and springs of water here. Damage here and death in both scenarios. Fourth bowl. The fourth angel poured his bowl on the sun, and it was allowed to scorch them with fire. And they were scorched by the fierce heat, but they cursed the name of God, who had authority over these plagues, and they did not turn to speak well of him. So here we can say that this is a form of divine permission. We can also say that the decision to curse God is not as logical as it might seem, if this is only God permitting the evil side to do it. Maybe one should curse someone other than God for these plagues. Here is an illustration of fierce heat, and here is the Cambrai Apocalypse with the sense of scorched earth and thirst. See how they seem to suffer because of thirst here in relation to the fourth bowl. And here is the Deuce Apocalypse. The Deuce Apocalypse is in color most of the time, but here we do not have color representations. But we have the sun here that becomes, it's like global warming on steroids. And you have suffering and the scorching and the thirst here of the inhabitants of the earth. And one more, this is the Angers Apocalypse, same thing, scorching heat. So we have the trumpet sequence, same thing. Fourth angel blew his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of their light was darkened. A third of the day did not appear, and likewise the night. So the same thing. The sun is struck here in the fourth point of the sequence. Same here, sun is struck, number 4. But here there is heat, mostly. And here there is darkness. So there is a little difference in what happens. Let's look at these 4 elements now. Trumpets and bowls compared, the first 4. Earth, earth. Sea, sea. Blood, blood. Sea creatures die, a third. Sea creatures die here, all of them. Here, rivers and fountains of water. Here, rivers and fountains of water. Here, striking the sun. Here, striking the sun. And here are my questions, or here are my observations. Here on this side, this is a demonic force at work in the world, on that side. And now my question, and you answer it yourself. What does this show? Who is at work? In these parallel scenes here in the bowl sequence. Let's do the 5th bowl. The 5th bowl. The 5th angel poured his bowl on the throne of the beast, and its kingdom was plunged into darkness. People gnawed their tongues in agony and cursed the God of heaven because of their pains and sores. But they did not repent of their deeds. And here we have, as it were, the world that has turned into kind of an ominously dark place, a kind of demonic darkness, if you wish. In the Angers apocalypse here, this is the 5th bowl with the darkness coming on the world. And I have a few more. This is again the darkness, and there is suffering here in the Jews apocalypse, and here pouring it out on the throne of the beast. And here it is as though the beast or the dragon here is sort of cowering, fearing maybe that something bad will happen to him, or fearing exposure, whatever. If you read this as expose, then we are peering into the demonic reality in its most basic sense. Let's look at the trumpet sequence here, and this one is very important of the trumpet of the 7 trumpets. And the 5th angel blew his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from heaven to earth. That is Lucifer. That's the story of Lucifer, as we explained in the trumpet sequence, fallen from heaven to earth, and the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit was given to him. He opened the shaft of the bottomless pit, and from the shaft rose smoke, like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened with the smoke from the shaft. So when we look at these panels in parallel, we see here that there is darkness here in the 5th bowl, and there is darkness here. And we see that the fallen star here is the cause of the darkness. He is the one who orchestrates it and who makes the world dark. And here then we might just be witnessing a similar expose. Say the figure that was seen in the picture here could be someone, not just someone who is afraid, but someone who is afraid of being found out, as it were, that you realize he was the one. So we are up against a very widely held view, of course, on what is going on in the trumpets and in the bowls. And the most widely held view is that the trumpets and bowls, they depict divine action, they depict scenes of retribution rather than scenes of revelation. And I have touched on this earlier in the trumpet sequence. And the quotation I will read here I could find that in many sources. It's not specific to this comment by someone that I know and respect and wish to I wish my comment to be respectful, and then I wish respectfully to disagree. So here is the view on the trumpets. God is preparing to bring his righteous judgments and vengeance upon those who viciously harassed and oppressed the faithful. That's the view, a scene of retribution. And the pictorial sort of corollary here in my representation, of course, here in the Welcome Apocalypse, is that we are not seeing a scene of retribution. We are seeing a scene of revelation of demonic activity here in the first trumpet. And just to top it off, here in the fifth trumpet, star that had fallen from heaven, bottomless pit, smoke coming out, locusts, scorpions, and the figure of Abbadon and Apollyon sitting on top of this and controlling it. It's demonic through and through in these pictorial representations, but it is not seen as that, at least not as much as it ought to here in this view. Here the angels with the plagues come from the very presence of God as his avenging commissioners. It is God who executes his righteous wrath as the answer to the prayers of his people. Probation has closed, and intercession on behalf of sinners no longer exists. The sinners must experience the wrath of God, which is unmixed with mercy and grace as the consequence of their persistent resistance and opposition to the gospel. So these are scenes in both scenarios of divine retribution. And I would just ask, because you might say, well, here in this territory, what could it be other than divine retribution? Well, let's go to the trumpets. In the trumpets, the case for divine retribution is practically non-existent. It is demonic reality, one after the other, and the imagery is so bizarre, overwrought, so pointed. So if you had said that the trumpets are revelatory of demonic activity, it would have been much easier to say the same here. And so that's why I say, when we cross the bridge, be sure that you get it right in the trumpets. That's enough for that. Let's look at the fifth element in the series here, fifth trumpet and the fifth bowl. So here we have bottomless pit, we have the throne of the beast. And the throne of the beast, as established in the fifth trumpet, he has the key to the bottomless pit. That's his home base. That's where he resides. Sun and air are darkened. Here the world is thrown into darkness, and there is torture here by the locusts. And here people bite their tongues in severe pain. And here are my questions again. On this side, it shows a demonic force at work in the world. And then we see similar things here on the bowl side. What does this show? Who is doing it when we take into consideration these parallels? The sixth bowl. And the sixth angel poured his bowl out on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, in order that the way be prepared for the kings coming from the rising of the sun. And I saw coming from the mouth of the dragon, and from the mouth of the beast, and from the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits like frogs. And the dragon, we know, that's Satan, the fallen star. The beast is the beast from the sea. The false prophet is the beast from the earth. These threesome. And we have a geographic location, as it were, an allusion to Old Testament scenarios here, with the river Euphrates as a major thing, and crossing the Euphrates is a major thing here. So this is what is happening in the sixth angel, and sixth bowl, and we read on. For these are demonic spirits, these three, performing signs, who go forth to the kings of the whole earth to gather them for war on the great day of God the Almighty. Look, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake and keeps his or her clothes, so as not to go around naked, that they might see his or her shame. That's a kind of parenthetical phrase here. And they, these three, the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, they gathered them, the people of the earth, at the place in Hebrew called Armageddon. And the last I checked on Google, there is about 40 million references to Armageddon now in Google. So Armageddon is a very big word, a sort of a legacy word from the book of Revelation. Well, let's look at some images here. This is the Angers Apocalypse, and here we have the false prophet, and we have the beast from the sea, and we have the dragon, and they have frogs coming out of their mouths. That's in all these representations. In the Cambrai Apocalypse, same three figures, same idea about the frogs that come out of their mouth. These are deceptive things, and they are in some ways echoing the plagues of Egypt, when there was a miracle of frogs in that story. And here we have the Trinity Apocalypse here, and the same thing. We have the dragon and the frogs coming out. We have the beast, frogs coming out, and here again the false prophet or the beast from the earth with the frogs. So these are deceptive powers let loose on the world, as it were. And here, this is a more recent one from the 16th century, showing all the plagues, all the 5 previous plagues, beginning with this one, and then you have the sixth element, the gathering at the Euphrates, and the frogs, and these three scenes. This is clearly a demonic reality. These are demonic spirits. So what were the other ones leading up to this point in the story? So we look again for the trumpet sequence. The sixth angel blew his trumpet, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar before God, saying to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, "Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." So the 4 angels were released, who had been held ready for the hour of the day, the month, and the year, to kill 1/3 of mankind. The number of the troops of the cavalry was 200 million. I heard their number. So let's go back to the basics here. 6th bowl, 6th trumpet here. So both of them, the 6th element in the series, the great river Euphrates, here the evil forces are restrained until here. And then God lets go of restraint. Here, they are clearly not restrained anymore. And this is what happens at the point of completion of what the book of Revelation calls the wrath of God coming to completion. So we see all these similarities, and there is speech here, deceptive speech here, and there is also deceptive speech here in the extension of the 5th and 6th trumpet. So again, just to see those elements here, there is war, gathering for war, mobilization, readiness for war here. And here there is also readiness for the climactic war, the climactic showdown, as it were. I have highlighted it again, climactic scenes at the river Euphrates. In the trumpet sequence, sixth angel, great river Euphrates here in the bowls. Here the troops, here gathering for war, here specifically named demonic spirits, and demonic spirits now being allowed to play out their skills without restraint. Here there is speech, as it were, the mouth, and here out of the mouth, out of the mouth, out of the mouth. This is very thematically coherent about deceptive speech, a deceptive phenomenon, as it were. So let's look at it again here, comparing them. We have reached number 6, river Euphrates, and loosening of restraint, and a climactic battle now taking place, as it were. Here, same thing, and then the battle is called the Battle of Armageddon, and I will not do specific exegesis of that this time. We will leave that for a little later. I have my questions again. Here, on this side, we see demonic forces at work in the world coming to completion. And then we see exact parallels here. And I ask again, what does this show? What is happening on the bowl side, given the force of these parallels? The 7th bowl. The 7th angel poured his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple from the throne, saying, Gegonen, it is done. And there came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and a violent earthquake, such as had not occurred since people were upon the earth. So violent was the earthquake. And these are the verses we are reading here. But we have read similar verses in chapter 4 in the seal sequence, here in 8 and 11 in the trumpet sequence. So these are echoes of God's appearance on Mount Sinai, the giving of the 10 Commandments. And we have seen this poster before. A revelation is in progress and is here coming to completion. And here the last verses in chapter 16. So the great city was split into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. God remembered great Babylon and gave her the wine cup of the fury of his wrath. And every island fled away, and no mountains were to be found. And huge hailstones, each weighing about 100 pounds, dropped from heaven on people, until they cursed God for the plague of the hail. So fearful was that plague. And I have a couple of texts here as well. The notion that all the islands fled away and mountains also. We have similar expression in chapter 6 and in chapter 20. So let's look at it here in the Cambrai Apocalypse. The 7th bowl, the cities fell, and there is a kind of sense of finality to it. The islands flee away and so on. And then we have here the Trinity Apocalypse. And we had to look up these French words because the Trinity Apocalypse labels it for us. And we concluded that these are islands now fleeing away, disappearing. The whole cosmic order is in some ways disintegrating. And there are these big hails coming down here, and they each weigh about 50 kilograms. And here there is someone sitting on the throne saying, it's over, it's done, this is the end. So, just to get back to my illustration at the beginning, there are some things that can go wrong. And I want to say what they are one last time. There is a threat to this passage over the bridge. The first one is failure to recognize that God is not the only one who is at work in the world. That's number one. The second one is that there is insufficient attention to John's use of the Old Testament, especially the story of the fall of the star and the role of the fallen star in the world, similar to here. And then the third one, the third threat, that we might be reading Revelation without rereader competence, without a sense of the whole. When something comes to completion in the seven bowls, we need to know what it was like when it was not yet complete, what happened at the beginning of the story. Adding it up, the seven bowls, here are 6 points. The bridge that ensures safe passage from the trumpets to the bowls is anchored at one side is anchored at one end on the trumpet side of the passage. The seven trumpets depict revelation of demonic activity and not divine retribution. I would like to make that as certain as can be. The seven bowls parallel the seven trumpets, only that they are worse. God has let go of restraint. There was restraint in the trumpets, there isn't that anymore. The letting go of restraint at Euphrates in the sixth trumpet foreshadows and complements the sixth bowl, also happening at Euphrates. At the sixth bowl too, we see that in all the bowls, but at the sixth bowl too, we see unrestrained demonic activity climaxing in the Battle of Armageddon. And number 5, this is what happens when the wrath of God is brought to completion. And my last point, the Song of Moses says it well. Great and counterintuitive are your actions, Lord God the Almighty, for your sense of right act has been revealed.